Welcome everyone to the 7 o'clock in the morning, Tuesday, April 25th Finance Committee meeting. We'll call it to order, and Chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda, unless there are any additions or deletions.
We're amending the agenda to add an item with respect to activity buses.
We'll put that into item.
How about item 6 and then move everything down?
Yep. Our new 6 will be activity bus purchase. All right. We get a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I move we approve the amended agenda.
I'll second.
Joe will second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Next item is approving minutes from the February and the April committee meetings. Are there any questions, additions, deletions to, first of all, the February minutes?
I move that we approve the February minutes.
All right. Have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All
I make
right.
a motion to approve the April 4th minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor of approval of the April minutes? Aye.
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 Minutes are approved. We'll move on to GPS lease contract. Mr. Sam.
So I asked Mr. Sam Basin and Mr. Watson to join us. This came up at the last week's Strategic Planning and Technology and Transportation, or SPTT committee. And so we've got a recommendation out of that committee to bring to finance and then hopefully to the full board next week. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Basin and Mr. Watson.
Good morning, board. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Our transportation department did do an RFP for a new GPS system for our fleet of buses. They went through a complete process, worked with 10 different vendors. After comparing the options available from each vendor with the needs that we perceive to be in place for our county, we do have a recommendation. That recommendation is to go with Synovia. Actually, there are two recommendations. The first recommendation is in contrast to what we've done in the past with the capital purchase of these GPS devices. A recommendation this year is to enter into a 5-year lease for these devices. That gives us more flexibility with maintenance and having inventory to switch them out. It allows us easier upgrades. So that recommendation one with all the vendors was to go with the lease. That we recommend is Synovia. We are currently paying Synovia just over $7,000 a month just for the use of our devices that we own. With the move to this lease, the monthly increase will be just over $4,000, and the projected cost per month will go from just over $7,000 to $11,700. We have found an item in our budget for this. We have a line item, contracted services, in our budget that in years past we've used for consultant work. We actually used this fund last year to pay our interim transportation director. So there is a budgeted item that we feel will meet this increased costs without any impact on our daily operations. So that is our recommendation through SPTT to the Finance Committee.
In the SPTT committee, they explained that there would be an app for parents. It would be a way to track the bus. Maybe you should just give them, I guess most of people were there. It doesn't matter. I think for the if anybody's watching, it's important for the buses that parents will be able to have an app to track where the buses are going and things like that. So it will be a great tool next year for the school year.
Yes, ma'am. And in the handout I just gave you, one of the things that Mr. Morial asked about in our last meeting was whether or not we had any information on that in screenshots. And in the packet that I just handed you, Mr. Morial, I'm sorry, Dr. Houlihan. Mr. Watson has prepared this for us. And if you'll look at the third to the last and second to the last, this does list some of the options available. And just as a detail, it has option 1, web access, option 2, full access. Ours has both of those. So we do have our bid does include the full access option. These are apps. These allow parents to know when the bus has picked up their child, when the bus unloads at the school. And then there's a geofence option that you can set distances on. So in theory, I'm sitting in the house on a rainy morning, and I know when the bus is a half mile from our stop, my phone vibrates, I get a notification so I can send my children out. On days where our bus is delayed for whatever reason, I get a notification saying that my child will be 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later coming home.
Do you get a text message in case you're not on the app?
Once you've downloaded the app, you can activate a push notification option. So it will, serve as kind of like my ESPN app, and I get a Panther score at the end of the quarter. This is the way it will punch up.
It's actually a screenshot of that in the packet where it shows the push notification and the detail that would be in it.
And then this is only has to be in our budget for 1 year, and then after that, it doesn't have to be the 11,000. Is that what I heard?
Yes, ma'am. It is that additional cost, that additional 4,000 a month that we're paying, actually the whole 11,000 a month that we'll be paying, we have to make that payment year 1 out of local funds, but this serves as a qualifying expense and one that the state will then automatically build into our budget for the following years. So this is a 1-year bite on a 5-year lease.
How long do the particular equipment expected to last for and need to be rotated out?
Mr. Watson, can you help us with that answer, please? I turned it on.
Oh, sorry. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So we'll have 2% spare units so that we can plug and unplug and go, or swap and go. But the lease option will ensure that all of our units are working each and every day, over the next 5 years.
A term for renewal. So in year 6, do we get all the equipment replaced? And do we know, is there going to be a 3% increase or a 5% increase? Is there anything on renewal?
I'm not sure at this moment.
Okay.
We do not have that information.
Okay. Is that something you could get? Just so we know what year 6 looks like.
Or in year 6. Or in year 6 or year 5, would we have to go back to a rebid and do a new RFP and see if the technology has changed or whatever?
I believe
So-
the 5-year length is pretty standard. That was pretty consistent across our the other vendors, but that is something we will check with the rep, and we'll get that information to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you anticipate having this installed before in time for the next school year? What's your time frame?
Yes, sir. If we can get the approval done in May, we're looking at about 4 to 5 weeks of installation time. It's just an upgrade. We currently use them right now for time and attendance, so it wouldn't be any huge undertaking for them to come in and do the upgrade.
What I told the team is I'd love for this to be in place by July 20th when our year-round schools go back to school. If not then, at least by the beginning of school in August when all of our other kids go back to school at the very latest. But that would be our time frame.
Because this is in next year's budget, right? Not the current year budget?
That is correct. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so, okay.
Next fiscal year. Okay.
This is a turnkey implementation as well that came out of committee. So basically, once we execute the contract, they will come out and install the units and get us up and running, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it sounds like from then, the only challenge is making sure all the parents are aware that it's available and getting them to install it on their phones. Good marketing campaign.
Yes, sir. And that is something we look forward to. We look forward to pushing out some very positive news about our transportation department as we enter into the next school year.
It'd sure be nice on a cold or rainy day to know that the bus is running a little bit behind and kiddos don't have to stand out there in the rain
Yes, sir.
quite as long. So you're looking for I'm sorry,
One
go
more
ahead.
question. So on that turnkey implementation, there are no additional funds for that, right? It's just we enter into the lease and they send their professional services people out and implement for us?
Yes, sir, you're correct.
Okay.
So you're looking for a vote and for support from the finance committee?
I don't think we need to because it's in the budget, right?
You've already put it in.
It's built into the budget request for the following year. So
Okay.
as long as the committee's okay and gives us the green light, we'd like to continue to add that to our budget and move forward. That's
And
it.
that's
All right.
Are we bringing
SPTT
this to
committee.
full board on?
The
As
full
part of the
board is
budget.
part of the
As part of the
budget
budget.
recommendation
Okay.
in May.
So this is for information only, unless anybody has any questions or objections. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you very much. All righty. Yeah.
Is that the next
6.
If you want to just stay
Yeah.
seated, it's fine.
It's not the next one.
Yeah, it's one after laptop, but you can sit. That's fine. Okay, laptop refresh.
So also in the Strategic Planning Technology Committee, we talked about the future state of laptops. The committee has recommended that we continue to move forward with the teacher administrator laptop refresh for next year. Take a pause for now on grades 6 through 12 because we believe that our student devices are in good enough shape that we can buy one more year. Let our new CTO come in and evaluate where we are with that strategy. We also discussed the need for K2 in terms of Apple iPad carts and classroom sets for technology enhancements and upgrades in there. So in this year's budget, capital side, what you'll see are the figures cumulative for the teacher administrator and the iPads. That's all you'll see reflected in year one. Year two would be your proposed capital expense on 6 through 12. And then I believe it's 2021 is where you'd pick up the grades 3 through 5. But again, that then gives us the time for our new CTO to come in, work with staff to make sure we're heading down the right direction. But our two pressing needs are addressed in this year's budget recommendation.
I have a couple questions. Are we going with the 4-year or 5-year lease on the teacher admin laptops?
All the numbers that are included in, for every year is 5. We've done 5-year leases on.
5-year lease, so it's the quarterly payment of 164,388 or something around that.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't have the annual payment.
With respect to the iPads through 2, my understanding, just so I have this right, is it's 5 per class per grade for K through 2. And it comes with a cart. I guess when I was at the SPTT meeting when it was discussed, but I guess $1.3 million for iPads in K through 2. I want to understand what they're going to be used for and if they help in any way with our literacy campaign. Because what I hear at the elementary school that my daughter goes to and from some other elementary schools is that teachers are in desperate need of classroom libraries. They're not getting funding from the school system for those classroom libraries, and they're looking to their PTOs and things like that to provide them. And I think that that's something as a school district we need to talk about a little bit, is to, especially with literacy declining over the last year, I'd like to see something that deals with that. That iPad thing doesn't have apps and that kind of stuff on it, and books would cost additional money. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out how this fits in. It was a lot more money than I thought it was going to be.
You bring up a very good point. And when I've evaluated kind of where we are with literacy, one of the things that you'll see coming to the full board, hopefully at the next board meeting and through the curriculum committee, we've talked with them about it. We'd like to launch a new literacy framework where we've taken a full year to evaluate what's happening in K1, 2, and 3. And we're preparing a full presentation to the full board on May 2nd. Part of that presentation and an action item would be the approval to purchase classroom libraries and school-wide libraries to really help out with our literacy efforts. And so the issue with iPads, in my opinion, is that classroom libraries in next year's budget? No, that's because we use the state's instructional allotment. It's not local money. The state every year gives us a textbook allotment fund, and we can use that fund for digital and print books. And so we have funds left over from this year's state allotment to use we can buy the books now and use them for next year. And so we've done a complete complete evaluation, school by school, on the number of hard print books that would be needed in every school for every classroom library. That's something I've talked about since my first day on the job here as a need that we have to do what I call level the playing field. And so that will come to the curriculum committee, but it has no impact with our local budget at all.
I guess the question is how much money are we talking about that would be devoted to classroom libraries at the elementary school levels? I mean, do you have any idea? Like, if we've done an assessment, how much money are we looking at?
Looking at Dr. Jones, he can come join us at the table.
At just our local elementary, we were talking $10,000 to $15,000 to get our classroom libraries times 30 schools is a lot.
You're looking at multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars for this. I mean, it's to get where we need to go, given the needs we have the need to have a balance between digital and print. And in K1 and 2, I do not believe pedagogically that it is appropriate for us to put so much effort on the digital. Now, the iPads, however, there are groups like Mayan. Mayan is a fantastic group we've been working with this year that has the world's largest digital text. And when you look at the number of minutes read through Mayan, it's absolutely amazing. So that's part of our digital effort as well. But the print side is equally important, if not more important. So I don't know if Dr. Jones, you can make any comments.
We still have computer labs in all the elementary schools, right? So they still, the K through 2 children, not the 3 through 5, because those have one-on-one, but they're still getting computer usage every day, right? In the week that they can log on to Mayan and stuff like that, including classroom computers, right? So this would be in addition to, the iPads would be in addition to a computer lab and classroom computers.
Yes and no, but again, what has happened with K1 and 2, from my understanding, is we have pushed older devices down. So as we have
right,
bought
they're
new
desktops.
computers,
My understanding, they're desktops.
we've bought, and all the feedback I've gotten from our K1 and 2 teachers have been the technology is so outdated, it's not working. We're spending more time on maintenance with them or replacing them. I hear that almost every time I visit a school. So the idea was, can we get rid of some of these outdated devices that are not working, get the iPads in, even though it's only 4 or 5 per class? That would be better than what we currently have. You can comment on this if you'd like.
So on the literacy, there are 2 sources that we look at in supporting our literacy instruction. The first would be the leveled library that we have, that we use for instructing reading, and that the books are leveled. And we want to make sure that we have a balance of materials in all of the schools that teachers have to use. So we did an inventory earlier this year. All of the schools did that. And we have looked at what is needed across the board to make sure we have equalized all the sources there, because some schools use individual funds to support that, and we want to equalize if there are gaps. So we've done an inventory there, and we've looked and started with K2 first. The second part is the classroom library inventory. Scholastic is helping us with that. They actually have an online tool that teachers complete that, and this is the last week that they're taking that. It's an online inventory, and then Scholastic will give us the reports at the end of the week, and then we'll be able to look at, okay, what are we going to need to do to fill the schools?
So do you have the total cost in terms of what we're looking at right now, just with the school-wide libraries, to help kind of equalize the playing field?
So the school-wide libraries, looking at that, is around $380,000 is what we would need for that. And we actually had that priced out by individual schools on what's needed.
And we get how much from the state? Like $1.2 million? Was that what I read somewhere?
This year's allocation was
1.7.
1.7, yes.
But next year, the rollover total.
Well, we have rollover that
okay.
we have a current rollover about 1.1 that we've held on. We try to make our purchases for college and career promise. We also look at each of the areas that we need to, and I say areas, elementary, middle, high school. And then what the next book is. For example, foreign language in high school was one we just made the purchases. So now we are looking at summer purchases, and then here at the end of the year, what are going to be our next? And we actually have held on to funding for books, if that's what we're able to do.
Okay. I know that
How much do you feel you have to work with?
One-
That together?
probably about 1.1 million. Is our balance is actually 1.171.
And then 300 of it is encumbered for text this
Correct.
summer. I guess that I hear from a lot of parents about textbooks and books, actual books, not computer, not digital, not that. And I just want to make sure that we're, but I know at curriculum on Friday, you guys will be discussing that. So I look forward to that discussion.
Absolutely.
But I'm not completely sold on the, keep going.
So with regards to the iPads, what type of content do you expect to be on it? And I'm sure that's an additional expense to buy that content as well.
So there are digital resources. I mean, there are resources that are open source that certainly a teacher can use with students that they have access to that are free resources. But we do have additional resources that we purchase. For example, Brain Pop would be something that students could access. Or we purchased K-12 Discovery Education Streaming. The teacher could use that, of course, on the Promethean board that they have, but also their activities or games that they could actually access with their digital devices. Mayan, for example, that can be accessed either on a computer or on the iPad. So there are
what does
sites.
Mayan give us?
Mayan gives us digital books. Mayan gives us digital books. And that's that collection that Dr. Houlihan spoke about. We have had, and right now we will have this available. We're evaluating the resources on what is being used and looking at the usage right now in Mayan in this pilot with 24 schools. Had tremendous response.
So what's the input from curriculum on our strategic plan on what are we using? Are we using textbooks? Are we using digital? And when I say digital, not just digital textbooks, but are we going to be using the one-on-one initiative? And like, what's our philosophy around delivering the content, right? So it's great that we have this technology. We're asking for $1.3 million in iPads. How are they going to be utilized? And where are the funds coming from for the content on those as well? Can we utilize that textbook fund to purchase apps for these things as well? Like, is that an option?
So example for one that we had input, Dreambox Math. We have purchased Dreambox Math and input for principals, which actually is diagnostics prescriptive software in mathematics that customizes the lessons for the students, where the students' learning level is, and then sets the math through games and through other activities to grow the students from where they are. That's an example of resources we use. We use funding from DSSF, high priority funding, for a certain amount of money that we have for digital text that we get information that teachers need. We also use a learning platform, Canvas, and teachers build their, using repositories, build their lessons and build their content that they can use for learning and resources that they have to use.
Well, and as the board has heard me say before, and I've said this publicly, in my opinion, the large focus around our one-to-one has been around the device. And that's not where the focus needs to be. The focus has got to be around teaching and learning. And we are preparing to launch a rebrand and a refresh and a new training series on the impact of teaching and learning through the use of technology. Not that technology has to be the end-all be-all. It is not the end-all be-all. At the end of the day, the classroom teacher has the biggest impact. And so we've got to do a better job of making sure, A, our teachers understand how to facilitate learning through the use of technology, B, how to communicate effectively with parents in terms of what content is available through the use of technology. It is not going to be my recommendation to go back and say, we're not going to do one-to-one, or we're going to go back to full board textbooks. The day you buy a hard copy textbook, it's already outdated. I mean, it's changing constantly. And so, the state is moving in this direction. The manner in which our kids are learning has changed, and that's where we're going. But I think by and large, the emphasis has been on the hardware as opposed to on how do teachers actually use the technology to facilitate learning. That's where we're going.
But there's kids who can't or who have difficulty learning digitally. that an actual hard textbook is something that they need to look at or read, and we don't have those resources right now. And I'm looking forward to the curriculum committee meeting, and I guess I don't like the iPads. I don't want to go to more digital stuff, especially in K through 2. Just personally, they need books to read, and stuff with games and stuff. I get it, but I want to hear more in curriculum. So I'm gonna not my decision.
Sure.
I'm going to come to the curriculum meeting and hear you out. I get it. A lot of kids do learn. I mean, and they use Brain Pop, they use those kind of things, but I just want to make sure it's a $1.3 million, and how long will these iPads last? If they're going to get dropped, they're going to get, I mean, how much time do we think we're going to get out of the iPads? How many years? So the computers, for example, we lease. And we say that that's a 5-year lease. So basically every 5 years, it's a refresh of the computers. This is a purchase. So how many years do you all think we're going to get for these iPads? I mean,
What's the expected life?
Do you know
4 or 5
what they
years?
project? I would say probably just estimating probably nothing more than what you would have for your
3 to
laptops,
5
3 to 5 years or 4 to 5 years. Encourage folks to talk to our K1 and 2 teachers, because they're the ones screaming at me asking for the technology enhancements.
And all I hear at our elementary school is classroom libraries.
And what I'm saying to this board is that we have a plan to do both.
Right.
You know, we're not ignoring the fact that, again, from the first day that I've been here, we've talked about the need to get more classroom text in terms of K1 and 2 to help with literacy. We've got a plan for that, and it's a great strategy to help our kids. All I'm asking for, and our teachers are asking for, is a balance of the two.
And I do get the balance. I guess I'm trying to, and I appreciate that. I'm trying to balance the fact that we already have computer labs and things like that for K through 2, but and these aren't 1-to-1, they're 5 per class. I'm just trying to balance those two things. It's not a small amount of money.
It's not a small amount of money. I agree with you. We have schools today that PTOs and PTAs are doing this. They're spending $40,000 plus, as you know, to buy things like iPads. And so again, when I've got schools in some parts of the county that have access to this technology and other parts of the county that don't, because they don't have a PTA, again, it creates a disconnect. So we're trying to make sure that all of our elementary schools have opportunity to have equal access to the same kinds of print and technology.
How many elementary schools currently have iPads? Had them as part of some sort of, but do you know how many have them already?
In my department, I don't know.
I don't know offhand. I know that Antioch does. I know that Walter Bickett does. We'd have to go school by school. But I don't know offhand how many or which ones. I know those two.
It's coming from, I just want to make sure that we have leveled libraries, because I don't want to hear from teachers and principals that there's mandated books that they're supposed to have in their school at the elementary school level,
Right.
and they don't have any funds to pay for them. Because I don't want to hear that.
We agree. And
Well,
that's
the
that's why
PTO
we're-
raising money.
PTO
to
raising money
supplement
for
classroom
classroom
libraries,
libraries.
That's
yeah.
why we're holding
Yeah.
on to these funds, so we can address that.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
And I'm, again, look forward to curriculum.
absolutely.
so besides some of the other uses, and that the iPads could be used just as someone might have a Kindle as well as a hard copy library, so they could switch off. So in a way, it's enhancing the classroom library by just another type of media.
I'd like to
Okay.
hear a recommendation out of curriculum about the iPads too.
Well, this is coming to you
That's
all.
Friday.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Leslie.
I just want to say that, when I heard this in Strategic Planning Technology Committee, I supported it. I didn't know the cost. So I just want to say that my position is open. I'd like to hear from curriculum too. I hear all that you're saying, Dr. Houlihan, and I know the balance and getting the research, but I will put this out here that once we crunch the numbers, we're going to have to make some hard decisions. We know the numbers that we're working with. So for me, it may not come from whether I don't support it or not. It just may be timing and what we can realistically do and what may have to be the first thing cut. So and I'm not saying I've made my decision, but I wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. Any other comments on laptop refresh or iPads?
I'll just add that this is part of what you'll see in the budget presentation as the capital budget. The facilities committee will have to go through the capital budget as well. So for today's conversation, unless you all want to get into it, the capital piece has to be vetted still. So I just wanted to say that publicly.
I guess that's a very good procedure piece. We're not voting on, we're not recommending the budget today because we still have to do the capital piece.
Correct. That will be under next meeting,
Okay.
most likely. We'll
So
need
this
the
is
next
just
meeting
more
for
of
the
an
board.
informational thing. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Jones. All right, we'll go to our new, we'll get Mr. Baisden back up here, Mr. Watson, and we'll go on the new item, activity bus purchase. You gentlemen could rejoin us. I'll take this opportunity to thank all staff for joining us at this early meeting this morning. The schedule has worked out best to have a 7 o'clock committee meeting, and I thank all of staff that's here in attendance.
Thank you.
Mr. Baisden?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be back. We have built into last year's budget was a capital item for a capital replacement of GPS. And there was approximately $150,000 built into this current year's budget as a capital element. Once Mr. Watson joined us and we started having GPS discussions, it became very clear to me that a capital purchase of those GPS devices was not nearly as attractive as an option as a lease. And that has been the work that we've done around GPSs and with the bids and everything has been lease-based. So we currently have approximately $150,000 sitting in this current year's budget for a capital replacement on GPS that we do not plan on using. Coupled with that is our need to continuously refresh our fleet of activity buses. And we have a history of purchasing 3 or 4 of those every year just to keep that fleet renewed. The state purchases and provides us with new buses. We have to purchase our activity buses locally. So what we are requesting for this year's budget is an opportunity to access the capital that was earmarked for GPSs, couple that with some existing fund balance in a capital account that is mostly populated by field trip fees, put those two together and make a purchase of 4 activity buses out of this year's budget.
Just how old are the buses that we are seeking to replace? That's a good.
The 4 buses that we're trying to replace are 2002 models. They are the rear engine buses that we currently use that we purchased years ago from Oklahoma.
Buses. And what's the utilization percentage of them? I mean, you said we buy 3 to 4 a year. That makes it sound like if we're rotating them every 20 years, sounds like we have a pretty big fleet, right?
We do. Currently, we have about 60 activity buses.
And can you tell me the utilization of them? How frequently?
So we have around 4, maybe 5 activity buses that we park at every high school, and they utilize those buses. And then if the middle school and elementary school needs buses, they come through transportation because we have roughly 20 or better buses parked at the garage for the utilization for middle school and elementary schools.
Any idea how much in average they put mileage on it each year? Like,
I can find out through Travel
it's
Tracker.
okay.
We do
Okay.
have that
I
information.
do know they use activity buses, like if they have to go up to Raleigh for Science Olympiad stuff, they use them for field trips
Sport.
that aren't there's a certain distance that after that distance, they rent charter buses.
Beyond
Yeah.
sports.
Beyond sports,
Right.
yeah. And sports at the high school is what he's talking about. Every sports, the football teams and stuff, all right, bands.
I was just going to say, are these the oldest or have the most mileage on them? That's why you're particularly selecting these to be replaced?
No, sir, it's not because they're the oldest. We do have some that are older. We're selecting these because we bought them from Oklahoma and they do not currently meet North Carolina specs. And these are the buses that we've also had some negative reviews in the past concerning, the rear engine pusher buses.
And they are currently parked, correct? They're not
We
being
currently
utilized.
use those, yes, sir. We currently use these rear engine buses.
These rear engine activity buses, even though they're not North Carolina compliant.
But they're not this, just for people who remember all this, they're not the same rear engine buses that are in our fleet of daily run buses, correct?
Correct. They are a different.
It's an older version.
It's an older
Yes.
version. And those do meet North Carolina standards, the ones that,
Yes, ma'am. All the yellow buses, they do meet North Carolina specs. The activity buses are the ones that we actually purchase out of another state.
And this is an action item because we are moving funds.
Well, this would be an action item, I believe, because we'd like to take this to the full board in May.
Right.
because it's
for-
out of this year's
This
current
year's,
year
That is
budget.
correct.
And we have to go to the county to move.
Is it,
activity buses from the line item that was requested, but it would also be an action item where you would need to budget fund balance for the balance of these
Right.
that we have specifically for activity buses.
and then we'll need to make the
Wait.
request.
In capital outlay, there are funds in
In
capital
this year's
outlay
capital outlay.
that are reserved for activity buses, and we would need to budget those funds. So it would be an amendment to the capital budget for these funds to buy these activity.
For this current year.
For this current
Yes,
year.
ma'am. I understand you now.
My understanding for funding is, so there was the 150,000 capital allocation that was originally earmarked for GPS, correct?
sir.
And then there is an additional balance required that we're going to be taking out of that fund that you specified?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the one where the field trip money goes in and
Yes, sir.
replenishes that?
Right.
Okay.
So the schools pay the school district to use the buses, and if they collect money for field trips and stuff, then they give the money to this fund.
Got it. Okay.
So what's
Good
the
use of the
total
fund.
cost of them overall?
If we do roughly 4 buses, it's $93,000 per bus. So you're probably looking at about $370,000 roughly. I may be off.
372 if we buy 4. Okay.
All right,
Okay.
let's do a motion. To bring it before the full board at the May meeting.
Well, I'll make a motion to bring to full board the purchase of 4 activity buses for $372,000 and request the movement of funds in order to do so. I don't know if you need any more detail around.
And then go to the full board will then say to go to the county.
Yes.
372, is that the right number? That's our math?
Ish.
Approximately-ish.
We'll
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's taxes and tag fees and things that go along with that
we'll have
too.
the
So we'll have
full
the
amount
exact.
as a
Exact
background for
number.
the board,
Yes.
for the May board meeting.
So that's
I
close enough.
second that.
Leslie, you with us on that?
I'm here.
Okay. All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion pass.
Thank you.
We'll bring that to the board. All right. Item number 7, final draft superintendent's budget. Dr. Houlihan.
So we're pleased to present to the Finance Committee the final version of our superintendent's draft budget. There are several changes that I'll highlight in the presentation that you have. Number 1, right from the very beginning, as I've communicated to the full board last night, there was a deal announced by the North Carolina Senate on the class size ratio issue. And so that is not a done deal yet, but is very promising in terms of next year will essentially buy us a year with a lot of planning to do for the fall of 18. And so I want to thank Senators Tucker and Newton for their hard work on this issue and thank them for their due diligence on helping us figure out how to work around this issue. So you'll see that that's still part of our budget. We're leaving it in until it is actually passed. I hope that it will be passed by the full General Assembly by the end of this week, because they know that our budgets are due. So that is still in there. The other change that you'll see is beginning on page 15 of the presentation. You'll see here in page 15 and the slides afterwards, I've spent considerable time with the staff members and leadership of the 6 schools that are part of this new school improvement initiative. I've been to every one of them. I've spent hours at their buildings getting input, and a couple of trends have emerged. And so you'll see some changes here in terms of the additional instructional time. That budget has been reduced. Additional items in there from social emotional support. And so that's been a pretty substantial change. To go into the detail, we've, beginning on slide 16, I wanted to lay this out very clearly so that the board and the public could see what we're talking about. So on slide 16, there are parts of this budget for these 6 schools that we've talked about. Number one, intensive tutoring. So tutoring during the school day, targeting 4th and 7th grade math, and you see the 6 schools listed there. That has not changed. The feedback we've gotten from our schools is that is desperately needed, and they support that. The second issue, all of our schools that are part of this have really expressed the need for help around social emotional support. So the proposal that has changed here has been the allocation of 1 social worker or a counselor to Benton Heights, East, Marshville, and Walter Bickett, and the allocation of 2 additional at the middle school. Have said to me, yes, we have existing counselors. We have folks like this. We need additional help. Schools that are dealing with children in poverty, they've got this major issue on helping them with academic support and social emotional support. So that has been a change to the budget. Been cluster training. We're working with a group called Safe and Civil Schools. We're working on a proposal from them to really look at how do we train teachers on how do you deal with kids that are coming to you from poverty, or kids that are coming to you from traumatic backgrounds or trauma, or what is called the difficult child. Those kids that really have some issues that they're facing. And I've asked teachers, when's the last time you've been trained on how to work with children that have those kinds of challenges? And they've never been trained. You don't get this kind of training when you're coming out of your College of Ed. And so that's another piece that I'd like to ask the board to consider, not just for these 6 schools, but the feedback we've gotten from the schools says make it vertical, make it even all the way up into the high school. So every school in that cluster can have the same common knowledge, common framework, common language, so that when kids leave 5th grade and go to 6th grade or 8th grade and go to 9th grade, no matter the school they go to, they've got that as part to the teachers have a common way of helping them. The third part you'll see here is related to the additional instructional time. So this piece has been reduced. We are no longer considering an extra hour every single day for every single kid. The budget won't allow for that. And so the idea on the additional instructional time is to target your tier 2 to 3 kids. These are the kids that need additional time above and beyond anyone else. The idea is that in our 3 out of 4 elementary schools that have year-round, they could use this additional time for during intercession, which is what we used to do up until 2009. More time. Marshville, we talked with them yesterday about a summer enrichment, i.e. get your tier 2 to 3 kids in school to you earlier than the first day of school. It wouldn't be their official start day, but to get them there, not every kid, but the students that need that time the most. And then a summer transition camp in your middle schools, where your rising 6th graders can get to that middle school a little bit earlier for a 1 to 2 week kind of leadership transition camp, where there'd be a balance between academic interventions, early assessment, culture, school expectations, building relationships with your teacher. Both of the middle schools support that idea 100%. And we would have to take transportation out of that. We'd have to do a lot of marketing with our families to make sure they understand why we're doing it. And at all 6 schools, we would provide a summer meal program through our child nutrition services. So the net of this is that this is an effort that is unique to this year's budget. I'm very proud of this effort. I want to thank our staff members at these schools who have given us a lot of feedback on this. But essentially, you're targeting the whole child. You're looking at the academic piece, the social emotional learning, and the fact that we know that our kids need more time in school. But again, it is no longer a extra hour every single day.
I have a couple questions. The intensive tutoring, it says targeting 4th and 7th grade math, but there'll be reading in there as well.
There will be reading. All of these schools also have literacy intervention and literacy teachers, so that would not go away.
But that's not part of the intensive tutoring.
And no, it's not. And the reason
Okay.
for that, and I want to be clear, it's not to say that there won't have kids being tutored for reading. That will absolutely happen. It is much more difficult to train and hire someone to teach literacy and reading tutoring. Math is targeting because it's content. And I'll have a greater ability to hire a math tutor than a literacy tutor.
Okay, so it's math, that intensive tutors math, okay. Social workers, so 4 at the elementary school level and 4 at the middle school level? I just want to
Yes.
confirm that, okay. So 8 total social workers.
8 total. We have 3 social workers for the entire county right now. I'm meeting with those 3 this week to get their feedback. You know, this is a great need. It's a national issue, but I feel like this is one step in the right direction.
Okay.
Could you, for maybe parents that aren't familiar, what exactly are the duties of a social worker in schools such as those? What would their responsibilities be?
Primary responsibilities are, number one, they work a lot with families on services that they need from a social emotional end, county agencies on those kinds of services. They also work with identifying the need for a child to have a therapist or a child psychologist. I mean, the list kinds of goes on, but this is not someone that would come in and be a behavior specialist, would not be an in-school suspension kind of a person. The primary job is to be very proactive on identifying children and families that have, that have social and emotional needs that, they often come to the school for that kind of help. And it's really connecting other resources that are out there and available.
We did hear during the, in the earlier curriculum meeting when these schools presented their school improvement plans, the need for more mental and that type of stuff. So I'm happy to see some of that in there. It's great. On the additional instructional time, is what percentage of students do you see using these things? Because it's not mandatory. So for example, I don't know if this still exists. We used to have a reading thing that if the 3rd graders didn't pass the EOG, they could go to a reading
Camp. Yeah.
camp
still
or
have that.
whatever we
Yeah.
called it. And my understanding is the participation wasn't huge, but what do you think? Are we talking 50%? What do you think are going to take advantage of this?
So I'm estimating probably no more than 30% of the total student population. I may be off by 5 or 10%, but again, it's not all the children. And yes, I've talked to the teachers about this. We have to sit down with parents and educate them on why this is important. And I believe that our parents, after they listen to us and talk with us, will say, you're going to give my kid 10 extra days or 7 extra days where, it's not babysitting, it's giving them a jump start on the next year. And we're going to feed them and they'll be safe and secure. I think they'll appreciate that.
I do. I think we saw results too from the reading camps that we used to have for 3rd graders, right? I mean, there was results. It helped those kids. So
And
that's good.
To your point, Ms. Heintel, I believe at some point it was mandatory as part of
It
promotion
was.
standards, and
They're
then the
right-
state
they're-
changed that.
Yeah.
But we still have a
Need to achieve this.
high volume of kids that attend that every year, and we're offering that as well this year through the state, correct, Dr. Jones?
They do not need proficiency. We must invite.
Okay.
That was a change. It was required at first.
It was,
So it
right.
was
Now it's
required, now it's must invite.
The 30%, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
Well, the 30% you mentioned, is that 30% of the students in the school are considered tier 2 to 3, or are you talking about 30% of the total population would utilize
He
the
thinks
summer
that,
services?
yeah, 30% of the total population.
I'm saying 30% of the total population. Now, you could be, depending on the school, 30% of that population could be tier 2 or tier 3.
Right.
It would depend on the school makeup. But I'm just estimating that no more than 30% or so would take advantage of this.
Transportation will be provided both for the intercession and the summer stuff,
That is correct.
and meals would be provided both for intercession and summer.
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm.
So what kind of
I think just on the summer meal, we talked with Denise Lamar, who's over child nutrition yesterday. What we're looking at is in the 4 elementary schools, we could have a summer meal program that's quote unquote closed. What that means is if you have to be a child that is registered that attends that school to get access. But at the middle schools, more of like a hub, that could be open to any of the families, no matter if you attend that. I mean, no matter if you're a part of that summer program or not. It's a community kind of.
I do like the meal program because I think that'll help bring some more people in and
Yeah,
help
so-
feed our kids in the summertime
so
as
draw-
well.
I do too.
So I think I think that's a great idea. So they will be held at each of the schools, or will there be I think the reading camps for Read to Achieve used to be held at a couple central sites. Is that what you're thinking? Or are you thinking all 6 schools will have separate things?
I'm thinking all 6 schools will have their own.
Which is nice.
And
Okay.
we would ask the school leadership team to develop a site-based plan on how that would, because again, they have to use their own specific data on what kind of events they want to have and what kind of academic interventions they want to have. Some cases might be targeted on science, and be a 2-week effort on science. So it just depends on the school.
Is it the whole intercession or the whole summer, or just a couple weeks here and there, or a week?
Probably no more than, I'd say, we used hours because in the summer, our approach is looking at, it might not be a come at 8 and leave at 3.
Okay.
It might be an 8:30 to 11:30, but for 5 days a week.
That's how the reading
Yeah.
camps were.
Right.
They
Yeah.
were half days.
And
just
so,
morning
you're
sessions.
looking at school by school, probably no more than 10 to 15 days max, however you want to use the word day. A day could be a 4-hour day or a 3-hour day. So an intercession, we would not be in the position to say to teachers, give up all of your intercession. That's
Right.
their break too. But at the same time, we say to them, pick different times during your first week of an intercession. It might be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It might be a Tuesday, Thursday. Just depends on how that school wants to position that.
I like the shorter schedule, because if you think about it from the kid's point of view, 3 or 4 hours of intensive tutoring is a lot to take in. And then you have your meal and you're on your way. So you don't have to get up as early as you might to ordinarily catch the bus during the school year. But then you have 3 or 4 hours of work, your lunch, and you're on your way.
Right.
So I have a couple of things here. So for the summer meal program, if I could just ask if we could do some type of, so if this does move forward, if we could do some type of study in our cafeteria at these schools versus is it worth outsourcing this? So if you're only bringing 20 to 30% of the population in, does it make sense to have staff and deliveries and all that to run the cafeteria?
And I think on that, it's a federal program, so it doesn't have an impact to our local budget. It's allocated by the U.S. Department of Education. And so,
For free and
Still funds being spent though. So if I could just,
right, it's just not our funds, I guess.
Right. It's federal funds that if you have the programs, the funds are available to you.
And that's why you have to take everybody that qualifies.
Right.
That's part of the qualification. When she does the application, she has to take that into account. So once you run the program, she'll be able to tell us at the end whether or not this is something we could do again next year, or if it was cost effective to do.
and it would be running our cafeterias with our staff.
Yes, with our
correct?
staff. So she would have to find people to staff those cafeterias and run those programs over the summer.
And during intercession.
Right. Yes.
All right. And then the other question back to the additional social workers, you have on here staff training. So is that part of their responsibilities as well? Like, will they have, no?
So the staff training is a separate item that we would contract that out. with a separate professional development group that has expertise on child trauma, psychological services. Now, the social workers currently, they do staff training, but more on one-to-one, teacher-to-teacher, or a small group. But that budget item is specifically to hire an outside firm to come in and train teachers in August when they come back to school on these kinds of strategies to use in the classroom.
So the needs, the 1 per and the 2 per, those are full-time needs. You expect them to be in front of people dealing with social and emotional issues
Every day,
all day.
every day, all day.
Okay.
Directing them to the appropriate county services, and in some cases, even working with other family members, parents.
Or, what came up yesterday when I was at Marshville and East Union is the need to hire more bilingual folks, folks that are on that end that speak Spanish and can actually get our Hispanic families engaged more in what's going on with their children. So, that's another example of one of their job duties.
Okay. Did you want to, any other questions so far? Did you want to continue with remainder of the budget?
Those are the only substantial changes, I believe. You get to the bond capital outlay. We've talked about that piece. That still needs to be vetted through the facilities committee. But
I have some questions.
that's substantially it from my perspective. I do want to say, Mr. Sides, and to the board, to the full board, this is a new kind of budget. We're really strategically targeting the needs of our kids, and I'm proud of this. I'm proud of the budget that we've proposed, and I thank the board for their support on this. We've taken a lot of feedback, and it's been I've very much appreciated what our teachers and administrators have said, but it's really, and our board, and it's really helped to shape kind of where we are today.
So I guess the only question I have with regards to the budget, what is the timing around the capital? When will this be complete with the capital portion
That
as
would
well?
be, facilities meets tomorrow at 5 to vet it. We're still waiting on some more information for the capital side. I think that Dr. Houlihan had some stuff that he wanted to do with Monroe, new academy for the healthcare and stuff. So we're still looking at it. That's why you don't have it yet. So we're going to have a meeting before the board meeting on next Tuesday to talk through the capital, but we'll get you that after tomorrow night's meeting. So you'll have time to look at it and ask questions and all that kind of stuff before.
I have to submit my quote unquote final budget to the board by May 1. So what you'll see, I'm hoping, is that by a Friday, as part of the budget or the board packet for next week's meeting, is you would see my final kind of budget. And then we'll meet as a finance committee, I guess, before the board meeting on May 2nd. But that's when you would see any adjustments to the capital piece.
We tried to get in a facilities committee meeting before this one and it just wasn't possible.
Yeah. So we're not at that committee meeting. The committee will vote yes or no. And then it'll go to the full board the 2nd with it to be given to the county on the 5th, presented formally to the county on the 15th. Kathy, did you have some questions?
Do you have any more?
Nope.
Okay. Can you, and I'm looking at this, the instructional expenditures for alternative programs and services went up to $2.5 million or 133%. Can you explain that? I know there's a simple explanation, but I just can't figure it out.
Okay, that's related to the intensive tutoring and the additional time and instructional time, because those would be alternative to your regular instruction.
So that's going to change because of so this is salaries, no? Not salaries.
It is, but the increase is directly related to these budget line items.
I tried to back into it, so I'll call you.
The school improvement initiative?
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
I tried to
item?
back into it for about 20 minutes and couldn't, so I'll ask you later. Okay. Does anyone else have questions?
I have a quick question. As far as the capital for 2018 of 18 million, that does include the approximate 2 million in true up fund balance, whatever you want to call it, with the county?
That does include it, yes.
It does. It does already include it. Okay, some more questions. Extra duty pay went up $585,000 or 585%. Is that also related to? The change was like almost $2 million. You can get back to me. We have a finance committee meeting again. Here, do you want my sheets? Okay, I can give you mine.
I would propose that's probably due to originally we were gonna, when you add more time to the day, you've got to pay your teachers for that extra hour. And so that's probably, I would assume for these,
Is that what extra duty pay usually relates to?
yes, it means after-school tutoring, basically.
And this could have been back when we were, that's what it is, back when we were doing the extra hour.
Hours.
Before this
Not
change.
updated.
Okay, are we gonna get
Okay.
updated of these or is that not possible?
Update.
I can work on updating those. I don't know that they'll change a whole lot based on some of these changes, other than the 100,000 that we've got budgeted for
Training
training
and
some of
the new 8 positions.
right.
But most of it
Those will-
still falls within the same
They
categories.
will.
Okay.
There'll be some slight changes, but those will fall in a few different categories.
Will there be changes for the new activity buses as well? But, because we're moving.
That's
some money
current year.
around.
That's current year.
Any other questions? Okay. I guess since we are going to wait until our next meeting, which we'll be deciding here pretty quickly, and this is for information only. All right. Next meeting, I would recommend that we meet 5 o'clock, May 2nd. Next regular board meeting next Tuesday at South Providence? I mean, it's South Providence, right?
Yes.
5? Does that
It's
work?
fi- Will that give us
I would-
enough room? 5 o'clock?
Well, basically, there
We're gonna
won't,
have
well,
closed session.
We'll have a closed session that normally meets around 5 or 5:15, I think.
So we have to do like
5:30.
last time.
So you think we need to do it at 4?
4:30?
I would recommend maybe 4:30 if that
Mhm.
works with the finance committee, just to be safe.
does that work for you, Joe?
I'll get back to you.
That works for me.
Or you
Okay.
could call in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we anticipate, because there have been some questions about some of the budget items regarding personnel, do we need to have a closed finance committee portion on the agenda to discuss any of the questions?
You might want to just put it on there just in case, but
That's fine. You mean
gave us
for
the
next week?
information. Yeah.
For the next meeting on the 2nd.
We'll be
So we'll
addressing
announce
that
it.
in the full board meeting on May as well in the closed, but we also, if you could add a closed session
Yeah.
for the finance committee as well.
I'd like to ask,
Just
so
in
it can be
case.
discussed, yeah,
Sure.
in the committee meeting. Okay. So tentatively, or work, any other suggestions? I don't think the day before is going to be enough time, so it really needs to be on the 2nd.
And again, once we're done tomorrow night, right, tomorrow night with the capital side, we'll get
Gotcha.
that out to the full board so they have enough time to look at it ahead of time. Really, I will just let everybody know now, the county or state statute or whatever it is requires us to present a 5-year capital budget. And we really we're going to focus on year 1 of that budget because we don't have a facilities director and the assistant superintendent over that area. So we're going to wait on the following years to really get into it with the new people that come on board. And we'll just have to tell the county commissioners that. We're going to go with what's in the 2 through 5, but really we focused on year 1 for right now. If he has an issue with that, we can try to
Yeah.
change that for now, but we just figured we need to focus on what we need for next year and then let the new people come in and help us determine what the focus should be on a go-forward basis.
I agree with that 100%.
2 through 5,
Okay.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Chair will entertain a motion regarding the next meeting.
Do we have to vote on that? No,
So next meeting date?
I moved to
No,
adjourn.
I think I can meet at 4:30 on May 2nd.
All right, so everybody's good with 4:30, May 2nd? All right,
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
all in favor? Thank you, everyone.